part of the vintage collection, and this lovely bow was created by Emily Holland for Frocks and Frolics. Look at that scalloped edge and that lovely lace all around the tails. We have a little crocodile clip. It's just precious, and I'm going to show you now how you can make this beautiful bow, and thank you very much, Emily, for designing it. What you need is a little bit of lace. You need some nice sort of lightweight fabric, some interfacing, the crocodile clip or a headband. Then you can use a glue gun to secure your crocodile clip, or you can just leave that off. And of course, you need your pattern. The first thing to do is to check the scale you've got on here. Make sure it's 2.5 centimeters on either side, then you know it's printed off correctly. The pattern has only a few pieces here. We've got the pattern piece for the interfacing because it's a wee bit smaller than the actual bow pattern. And then we've also got the center of the bow and the tails, and everything is worked out so it works absolutely beautifully. Let's start cutting out our fabric. We need to put our fat quarter on the fold, and then we place the Lilou bow right on the fold here, right on it. Don't leave any little bits of fabric sticking over the edge here. We want to have our pattern right on it, and we don't want to waste any material either. So we pin it all on and start cutting out. Cutting out is always best when you have the pattern to the right of yourself and then the scissor is to the left. That makes it much easier because your left hand can kind of lift the fabric as you go, and that makes life a lot easier. You can see some lines here on this little tail part of the pattern. Those lines are so you can attach your lace to it at that point. And now for this one, you don't really need to cut the scallops out. I am doing it here, but you don't need to do that because I'm going to show you a trick in a minute. We are going to cut out our interfacing as well. So with the interfacing ironed on, we really don't need to bother cutting out the scallops. You can do that, of course, but you don't have to. And since I've cut everything on the fold, I've got 2 of these here. I don't need them. I leave the other one for another time. I only need 1 of these. Now I'm also going to cut out my interfacing. And the interfacing here goes over the entire piece, and that keeps your tails really nice and structural so that they don't collapse at any time. But because we are also going to add lace to it, that keeps it nicely as well. Now I'm going to cut my interfacing on the fold as well, and here I'm going to take great care to cut it out really neatly because we're going to sew along the edge of the interfacing. So it's very important to cut this really well. When you're working with a fabric that's a little bit denser, like my linen here, then really you don't need to interface the whole lot. You could just cut one part of it because we're folding it over anyway, and that will be thick enough. Sometimes it is advisable to use the interfacing over the whole lot, and that's when you're using taffeta or a lightweight fabric. But if your fabric already has structure to it and will hold its shape, then you don't need to cut it on the fold, just cut it once and that'll do as well. And for me, it was the first venture into bows and all such things because I don't really do this sort of thing. So I was very, very impressed with Emily's work on here because it's a simple pattern, but sometimes they're the hardest to do because they really need to fit well. And if you're on the course, you got yourself the pattern, and I'll tell you what, you're going to absolutely love this. You're going to whack these out. Right, so now I'm going to put the interfacing onto my linen. It's got to go on the underside of my fabric, of course. Here we go. And you can see that we have got some seam allowance on either side. So when you're not even using your pattern piece for the bow, then please make sure that you add that seam allowance to either end. Now we can start sewing it together in the next chapter. See you there.